Welcome to the Art of Plenty. I am so excited to be talking to you today because this is a thought that has been percolating in me for years, and I've probably alluded to it in previous podcasts, but today I want to dive into it because it's been on my mind and my heart for years. This is something that I constantly think about, come back to, cycle around again. And I'm very interested in this topic. And the reason for that is this is one thing that you can do that will impact every sphere of your life. I am talking about your physical health, your well-being, your emotional, your spiritual, your mental well-being, your emotional intelligence, your relationships with your partner, your relationships with your kids, your work, absolutely everything you do and everything that you are trying to do is impacted by this one thing, which is why I always circle back to it and why I always spend so much time thinking about it, is because I want to have success in all of those areas in my life, and I want to grow and change and be better and be who I'm meant to be. Okay, do you know what it is? It's rest. Simple, right? It's rest. It's making sure that we are getting enough rest that we can be present, that we can push ourselves, that we can be creative, that we can think, that we can grow. If we don't have rest, we can't thrive. Now, simple, right? Not so much. The recent thought in my cycle of thinking about rest is around this concept of busy culture. Now, I don't know if you've heard that term. It was a new term for me. I've been hearing ripples of it, but I haven't necessarily heard it articulated it in that way, that there's a busy culture or a mindset or a paradigm around that how busy you are somehow impacts the worth that you are or the value that you have as a person. We somehow have connected that our level of busyness is a descriptor that describes how valuable we are. So the busier we are, the more our life must be contributing or making a difference, and therefore the more valuable we are as people. It's this toxic instinct that we either have to actually be or appear to be busy. I just want to pause on that for a minute. That it's a toxic instinct. And the reason why I want to pause on that is because I think we can get caught up in the ways of being that are modeled around us and the ways of talking that are around us, that we can get swept up into things without recognizing the impact that it is directly having on us. For example, how many times have you had a conversation with someone, like an acquaintance, in the last week or so, where you've asked them how they are and their response is, "Oh, I'm so busy," or "Oh, I've got so much going on." And I don't doubt that we do, but I love this idea of just stepping back for a minute to see am I a person who is getting caught up into this busy culture? Because one thing that being busy does is it keeps you moving forward, or at least it gives you the perception that you're moving forward. But I am of the assumption that it's actually pulls you back from really growing. If you get caught up in this cyclical nature of being busy and you're not resting in the way that you need to rest. I was one time, this wasn't very long ago, I was having this conversation with someone who is in my life, but not necessarily close to me. We are more than acquaintances because our lives intersect on a regular basis, but we're not in each other's friends circle by any means. And I was expressing to her, she's quite a bit younger than I am, "Oh, I'm I'm so busy. And she responded to me and kind of called me on it. And she said, well, are you busy or do you just think you're busy? And she went on to express that we're not as busy as we think we are. We're just talking about being busy. And I think what she was, at the time, I didn't pick this up, but I think what she was alluding to was this idea of the busy culture. But when she was talking to me, I was looking at her and I was seriously judging. I'm still judging. I'm like, I still can't fully get over it. But I'm looking at her and I'm thinking, okay, you don't have kids. You don't have a partner. Like, you might be dating casually, but you're not married. You're not in a significant committed relationship. You live at home with your parents, and your work is you're a sole proprietor. So you do this work on your own. And what I mean by that as a sole proprietor is knowing what proprietorship is, knowing that means you have a lot of flexibility over the way that you dictate your day, and you're running a business, but you're more creating a job for yourself, which again gives you a lot of flexibility. And yeah, there's definitely work involved, but it's not the same level of busyness that being an entrepreneur and having a company where you have staff is. So I was seriously judging because I was thinking to myself, you have no clue what it's like to be busy. And when I say I'm busy, it's true. I am a very busy person. I couldn't not be busy at this season in my life because I have 5 kids that I'm responsible for, or shared responsibility for, because of the work that I do and the commitment that I have to clients and the commitment that I have to this podcast and the commitment that I have to our staff team. And then the shared responsibilities that we have for having our household. We live on property. We have the responsibility of caring for our property. I'm legit busy. And when she said that to me, I was taken aback because I was like, wait a minute. Like, when I say I'm busy, I mean I am busy. But now when I think back to it, I think, okay, was she picking up on this idea of busy culture? And is there any part of this thinking that is actually serving me? Is it somehow feeding me? And I don't mean serving me in a beneficial way, but I mean, is somehow being busy like this validating me or improving my sense of self in a way? I'm not sure about that, but I think it's worth settling into that question a little bit and asking myself, because here's the deal. If being busy is feeding some part of my ego or sense of self, then I will continue to look for ways to be busy because I won't want to necessarily give that up. But the cost of being busy, or at least having the appearance of being busy, could actually be impacting my growth, which will, over time, impact who I am as a person, which then is the whole purpose of wanting to feel good about myself and wanting to stroke that ego, is because I want to be who I'm meant to be. So I need to step back because I don't want to be just saying I'm busy, and I want to be making sure that I'm not creating a situation for myself where I'm not getting enough rest. Because there's a direct correlation between the rest that I'm taking and the success that I can have in all areas of my life. My mom, I was talking to her about this the other day, about the different types of rests and just kind of rolling through some of the ideas in my head. I have a great relationship with my mom, and we often talk while I'm driving because I drive around all the time in my vehicle. I'm always dropping kids off and picking kids up after school hours. That's kind of my life. So I often phone her, and that's one of the places that I rattle ideas off is by talking to her. And her response to me about what is rest is that rest is a place. It's a mindset. It's a mindset in chaos. It's a place to let go. And for her, it's an action in faith. It's almost a synonym for peace. So when she talks about rest, it has nothing to do with what's going on around her, and it has to do with where she is on the inside. It's a spirit condition. So I've been mulling that over, and I've been mulling over this idea that we can have moments of rest where we quiet our bodies, where we quiet those physiological reactions that we're having, and we come into a place of calm. And by doing that, by quieting our nervous system, by quieting our mind, we can settle ourselves so that we can continue doing the things that we're meant to be doing or that we have to do, because we don't always have the luxury of just being able to do what we want to do. And I've been really gravitating towards that. And I realized that there's a couple meditations that I use that do just that, that in moments of chaos, they're a way to get recentered. And one of the things that I've been noticing lately, and I've had this come up in different blips in the last year, is that I will wake up feeling extremely anxious. And when I say I wake up anxious, I'm talking about I have a physiological feeling of anxiety in my body. And that's not a norm for me. Even when I was experiencing anxiety, I did not wake up with that feeling. And there's been times when I've gone to sleep and I've woken up, like 20 minutes later or an hour later, and my body has it's as though my body has anxiety coursing through it. And it's not a great feeling to wake up for. And then after I feel that in my body, then my mind kicks in and my mind says things to me like, you feel overwhelmed because my body is reacting as though I'm overwhelmed. And I'm trying to figure out, okay, where is this feeling coming from? Is this feeling true? What do I need to do to change it? And there isn't a precursor for that experience of anxiety in my body. It's not like something is happening. And I find about, 40 minutes later, I don't have that going on anymore. So I don't know if it is a hormonal piece because I'm in my mid-40s, because I'm in chemical menopause. I don't know if there's a hormonal component in my body that is creating that physiological feeling of anxiety, or if it has to do with the pressure that's happening in our house. Am I picking up on my partner's feeling of pressure, or do I just have a lot going on and I've got too much going on and I need to somehow simplify and relax? So what I've been doing is this meditation, and I'm going to record my meditation for you. So if you head over to my DMs or check out the show notes, there will be a link to that audio recording that you can then utilize if you have that feeling, because sometimes we need a 2-minute rest in the middle of our day, and we need to somehow reset our sympathetic nervous system. I don't know if it's sympathetic or parasympathetic, or I can't even remember what they're called right now, but we need to reset our nervous system so that we can calm down. Okay, so my mom says rest is a mindset. Can I incorporate that? Yes, I'm using meditations to do that. Now, one of the things that I hear my kids say a lot, and I don't know if this is your experience, but when you have busy kids, because they have a lot of activities that they enjoy doing, my daughter especially would say things to me like, I just need a rest. I just need a break. And a break and a rest are not necessarily the same thing, but I think we use those two words interchangeably. So I'm going to separate them, because when my daughter says to me, I need a break, I will say things to her such as, dance is a break for you. You're choosing to dance because it feeds your soul, it is physical activity, and it's a break from school. It doesn't mean it's not hard, and it doesn't mean that it doesn't require energy, but it is a break. It's something that you're doing for you, which is how I guess I'm classifying break compared to how I'm classifying rest. Activity can be a break. It can be a break from other types of activities or pressures, but that's not necessarily a rest. And I've come to the conclusion that we need different types of rest and we need different types of breaks in order to manage the types of lives that we live in our modern existence. So at its basic, rest is about refueling, it's about recharging, and it's a way to collect yourself and a way to nurture yourself. And breaks have those same components. They are also meant to refuel you or to recharge you or to give you a fresh perspective. Now, I think it's important that we differentiate different types of rests or breaks because there's different times in our life and in our day where we need different types of rest or different types of breaks. And I did an episode a while ago where I alluded to the cyclical nature of our being, which I'll link in the show notes if you want to go back and watch that episode on YouTube or catch it on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, because that idea that we're cyclical beings comes really into play when we consider rest. It's so obvious when you look at a 24-hour period, when you look at a day. Our bodies need rest. And I'm sure there's all sorts of incredible research you could do on Google to find out how long the body can go without sleep and what types of things start to deteriorate at different hours. And of course, there's going to be variance person to person. And of course, some people need less sleep. But the majority of the population, I think it's like, I don't even know if it's in the high 90s%, need around 7 to 8 hours a night. And they have looked at studies where they look at longevity. And the people who consistently get around 7 to 8 hours typically have longer lives because when you sleep, your body does all sorts of incredible things, such as healing and repair. The other thing that I love about sleep is that you can go to bed with a problem and you can wake up and that problem all of a sudden has a solution because your brain works on it when you're sleeping. And I've said this before in my different podcast episodes. When I was a little girl, I had this nightie that I wore. It was like a 6X. That was the size. I probably got it when I was 4 years old, and I wore it till I was maybe 10 or 11. And it had pink trim, and I hated pink. But it had a little bear who was sleeping on the word it. And it said, "Let me sleep on it." And when I was little, I did not get that. I did not get the pun, but it was the softest nightie, and I wore it all the time. It was my favorite PJs. And my mom saved it, and now my younger daughter wears it all the time. And what I didn't know then, but I know now, and when I see her in that nightie, it brings back lots of nostalgia. But it's also a reminder that if you don't have the solution, if you can't figure something out, if you can't work through a situation with your partner, just sleep. Just sleep. The answer will come. Or with your partner, just take a break. Come back later. Because oftentimes when we take a break, when we take a rest, we'll find that we're refueled, we're recharged, we have new perspective, and we're able to solve something rather quickly compared to had we just pushed through it and tried to figure it out. So sleep every day, very basic type of rest that we need, and we can't not do it. Our bodies will do it for us, even if we try to avoid it. Now, weekends, breaks, days off from our regular work routine, those are things that we can avoid. We can avoid taking a break, especially if you're an entrepreneur, because there's always work to be done. There's always things you could be doing. And this ties into the busy culture piece. But you need a day off. And I think in our Western culture, we've gotten used to having 2 days, and typical weekends for people are Saturday, Sunday. But I've been really working to have one day off where I don't do things that I normally do. Now, I don't have the luxury of, like I did when I was a kid, where it's school and then there's days without school. As an adult, we still do things. I still do laundry. I might have to go grocery shopping. I might have to do things that I would consider work. So the way that I try to protect my week to make sure that I'm getting rest is to have at least one day a week where I'm not doing work. And I have a whole grouping of things that I would call work, whether it's research, whether it's writing, whether it's seeing clients, whether it's meetings, whether it's think time. I have a whole category of things that fit into what my responsibilities are for work. And I don't do those one day a week. Now, there are many weeks or days where I feel like I don't necessarily need that break and I could just push through and I could just work. But the reason why I have found in my life that it's so important to make sure that I'm carving time out that looks different, at least one day a week than every other day in the week, is that I don't know what's coming in my future. And one of the ways that I safeguard my future, meaning safeguard so that I know I have the energy, so that I know I have the capacity, that I have the creative, intellectual space for future, which I don't know is coming, I carve out time every week because that day off rejuvenates me, even if I don't necessarily need it, which then fuels me for the week to come when I don't know what's necessarily going to come my way. So once a week, once a day, those are big times for rest. And then in the course of the year, I also look at this because this is when I think about actual break times, like a holiday or a few days off, to shake up the rhythm of the work. And again, I really have noticed in my life that those have been times that have refueled me for the future, even if I don't know what that future is. So for example, when my youngest baby, so number 5, was 7 months old, we went on a family holiday and the 7 of us went and my husband's parents came along and we went away for a week. That holiday, I was so recharged and refueled that I rode the coattails of that holiday for almost a year. Like I'm going to say 10 to 11 months. And what I mean by rode the coattails of that holiday, okay, so baby number 5, so I'm coming out of pregnancy, breastfeeding in this holiday. I was still breastfeeding at that time, but at that time it was getting less intense because he was starting to eat food. So that time in my life when my babies were young and I was having babies, it's a different type of energy that's required. And it's a different type of dynamic in the family. I've had very little alone time. You don't necessarily get time with your partner in the same way that you're used to when you're having kids and when your kids are young. And that holiday, we just really connected and we had so much fun. I connected with my partner, I connected with the kids, and we weren't thinking about work. At least I wasn't at all. My husband probably was, but not as much as he would be if he was home. And it energized me so that I didn't need that same level of connection. I didn't need that same type of break from the everyday routine for months. Whereas in other times when we've done holidays and it's only been for 2 or 3 days, it doesn't fuel me for the same duration of time. It doesn't last as long. And depending on the quality of the holiday, meaning how much time do we have to work? Because oftentimes as entrepreneurs, things will come up, even if we're on holidays that we have to deal with, or things that you don't necessarily anticipate that have nothing to do with work will impact time away, which is just the way life is. but that will impact how long I can ride the coattails of that. So having different types of breaks that switch up your life, that allow you time to focus on what's important and spend time doing the things that you love, is a way to recharge you so that you can come back to your regular life fresh. And I realize that that's a luxury that I have, being able to have taken holidays. And I don't always have that experience where we have been able to take holidays like that. In fact, that one was a very rare one. That's probably the only one that we've done like that. We've done other types of holidays, but that one was really unique. And that's probably why I reflect back on that. But I understand that not everybody has that opportunity. So finding ways that you can have a chunk of time, and you may notice this in your own life, that actually recharges you for the future. So we've talked about 3 different types of rest: daily rest, weekly rest, annual rest, like at some point, some type of break in the year. But the other piece is, for women especially that are still menstruating, the cycle that we have, even on a monthly basis. There's times in the month where you may find that you need more sleep, or you need different types of breaks so that you have energy for the rest of the week. And one of the things that I've been trying to do is settle into acknowledging that my body operates in different ways. And if I can ride with that rhythm, then I'm more capable of the output that I need to have. And I notice this is really big for motivation for me, because there's days when I just want to hibernate. And a very close friend of mine calls them hibernation days. And when I was at her house, I'm like smiling so big right now if you are watching me on YouTube. She has this note on her fridge, and I can't remember the exact writing, but it says something about hibernation days are okay. And I love that, because I know for myself, there's some days where I just need to settle into myself and have a cup of tea and rest a little bit more than I normally would. And I can get really hard on myself. But what I've noticed is, when I take those hibernation days, when I don't feel very motivated to do things, my body is saying, you just need to rest a bit more. You need to have a quieter type of day, do a different type of work. And then the next day, I feel way more motivated and I get way more done. Whereas when I haven't taken those hibernation days, when I haven't gotten quiet and tried to push through, I'm totally ineffective. Like completely ineffective at the things that I need to do. Okay, so there are also seasons in our life that we may need more rest. And I alluded to this a little bit before when I was talking about when my kids were young. When you're going through pregnancy, when you're going through sickness, when you're going through illness, when you birth a baby, way more need for physical rest. We need way more sleep going through those things. And another category is when you feel lethargic or when your mood is really low. Sometimes you just need a physical break. And what I mean by a physical break is you need to do something physical. You need to take a break in a physical way, go for a long walk, get into the gym, watch a YouTube video, and do something active. Because sometimes low mood and lethargy can be impacted by doing something active, and that's where you get recharged. Laying around and having a hibernation day might actually work against you in those moments. But that is really a matter of figuring out where you're at. I took my son for a walk about a month ago. He was so angry. And as soon as we started walking, it was about 15 minutes in, 20 minutes in, his mood totally changed. We have to be aware of how our bodies and how our emotions and how our nervous system is reacting to the things around us, so that we can curb things when we start to feel certain ways. I also find that if I'm creatively stuck or I don't have a good idea, that a mental break for me is doing something that requires a lot of effort so that my mind can't wander. It is an activity that is really intentional, that I have to really focus on what I'm doing. That will often help me get unstuck in creative and other ways. Because I find when I do something like that, that requires a lot of attention and intention, that later on, when my mind goes into wandering mode, I have more freedom of thought and can come up with more creative ideas when my mind wanders. So I'm talking about two different things there. I'm talking about when your mind just goes and it's just kind of running things through and things are discovered through that. I'm also talking, on the other hand, I'm talking about when you're really focused on something that you can't get distracted by those other thoughts. And it requires a lot of mental intention to do the activity that you're doing. Both of those things I find, I would say, are different types of mental breaks that help to push me creatively when I need creative solutions or if I'm stuck somewhere else in a creative thing. Okay, we talked about a lot of different types of breaks and a lot of different types of rest. I want to circle back to where this all began, which is that this is the most important thing that you can do for yourself if you want to have success in your relationships, in your well-being, physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, in your work, in your creative aspirations, is rest and figuring out, tuning in to when you need it and how you need it and what type you need is the key to unlocking a lot of success in these different areas. At least that's what I've discovered. I would love to hear if it's the same for you. Go get a cup of coffee, call your friend, talk about rest, talk about taking breaks. This is too good not to share because we need to somehow offset this busy culture that isn't necessarily feeding us in the way we need to be fed. This is The Art of Plenty. I'm Amy McInnes, and I'm so thankful you were here today. So much appreciated. Have a fabulous day.